That monkey's paw is gonna make our dreams come true.
Wizards of the Coast has officially taken over control of management of the Commander format. And as EDH players have been asking for a change like this for a while now, I can only help but feel that the monkey's paw curls a little bit as we look to get the wish that we've always wanted, but maybe not in the way that we wanted it to in terms of implementation. And now with the article being released and a lot of people getting their initial thoughts out there, I wanted to provide the perspective of, kind of cautious optimism when it comes to being an enfranchised player in Magic that has gone through many years of changes throughout various constructed formats from Wizards of the Coast and their management of those formats, and how that might translate to this, how Commander shouldn't be managed by Wizards of the Coast, and how I believe the advisory group, now with Josh C. and the other individual as well that left gone, what happens to that group? What happened to all the years of philosophy that was brought about by the rules committee in EDH? And what about the original vision of its creators? Has that been shunned away at this point? And have we now transformed Commander into a vision of something that it no longer once was? And is that a good thing? I'm hoping to address all of that in today's video, but I wanted to kind of ask your initial thought here, as I always do with many videos. Before you watch the rest of this, maybe comment down below and let me know, what do you think about this change first and foremost? Without any thoughts whatsoever, what is your thoughts on Wizards of the Coast taking over the EDH ban list and management of the format outside of the RC? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? And then maybe watch the video and then maybe edit your response from there, because I think it's really interesting. Like, I have a lot of kind of off the cuff takes, but I really want to go through the article and maybe highlight some of the things. And we're definitely going to get more information as future kind of announcements come on later this week. So let's hop right into the article and some future and some other analogous pieces that I want to highlight as well. Past week has been a tumultuous one for Commander fans, members of the Commander Rules Committee, and the Magic community as a whole. Along the way, we've seen players and fans share a diverse range of passionate opinions, far too many of which were harmful or malicious. So before we go too far into this, I think a lot of people, you're allowed to be upset about the situation. You're allowed to be angry at a decision. It's fair to say that a lot of people lost a lot of value in their collections, and the whole idea of, kind of gaining money off of speccing on Magic cards, that's a whole different situation. But a lot of people had a lot of value taken out from underneath them, which is fair. But then translating that emotion into something malicious onto someone else, something harmful onto someone else, is not appropriate. That's something that in many aspects of life, like you lose a game in like a MOBA, you don't bang on your table, you don't like start screaming and throwing things when you get upset at your friends or your partner, right? Like, we shouldn't be threatening other people for decisions like this. We're allowed to get mad. We're allowed to, kind of talk about that emotion and work through our community with it. But we don't act on that necessarily, because the whole eye for an eye thing doesn't really solve, again, it makes everyone blind. So below and over the next few days and weeks, we'll be discussing quite a bit about Commander, starting with the most pressing. Over the past week, the conversation has escalated, culminating with unacceptable proportional threats to the safety of members of the Commander Rules Committee. This is something we will not tolerate. No matter how you feel about Magic, it is never appropriate to threaten someone. Exactly. Again, you can feel upset, you can be angry, and this is a discussion that you can have amongst your communities in these comment sections with each other. You don't threaten people, right? Like that, like unironically, you cannot, like, that's not appropriate behavior. You can, but you're going to get your own consequences for it. Don't unironically just be threatening people, right? Like that's not okay. Everyone at Wizards of the Coast is united on this front. We will not hesitate to take action against individuals who threaten to harm community members or employees, whether that be jail time or banning people. Like, look, a threat is a threat, over a card game or not. If you threaten someone's life, look, I don't know, like, that's jail time. That's a crime. This week has also demonstrated the truly monumental task that faced the Commander Rules Committee. The Commander RC is made up of 5 talented caring individuals, all with other jobs and lives, which they must balance with managing the most popular format in Magic. It results in incredible amounts of work, time spent deliberating, and exposure to the public. Nobody deserves to feel unsafe for supporting the game they love. Unfortunately, the task of managing Commander has far outgrown the scope and safety of being attached to any 5 people. So today, in partnership with members of the existing Rules Committee, we are announcing that the Rules Committee is giving management of the Commander format to the game design team of Wizards of the Coast. Woo! And look, again, as a constructed player, I have a lot of concerns. I think a lot of people are optimistic, and I don't mean to burst your bubble, but like the design team's management of certain aspects of Magic has not had a great track record. And I will say overall, it is a net positive piece of management, because we don't get to see a lot of the positive changes that have come out. A lot of people, and I will later on point out Nadu as a more recent design choice decision that was made. But in that article about Nadu, one thing that was, again, very much highlighted, and I think I very much stand by as well, and I agree with, is the fact that the community is quick to point out the negatives. We're very quick to see negative reviews, and like so many studies have come out. Like I even posted in a video I did earlier, I posted a quick article about it, where we're very quick to do reviews and talk to people and spread the word about negative news, which is why kind of anger baiting and all that stuff on YouTube is so common. It gets the views, right? It gets the kind of movement and the cultism going, but we don't see the good stuff. We don't see the times when their design choices went towards good changes and actually led to good game design. We don't see any of that. We see only the negative decisions that we see, you know, ban the One Ring, ban Orcish Bowmasters, ban Ragavan, ban Grief, whatever. We only see that. And so I think in many ways, like the design team does do a good job, but I think when they do a bad job, it can be pretty glaring. But to be fair, again, I will acknowledge that statement has its own biases. So just wanted to put that out there. Commander has always been a community-focused format, and this move in management does not change that. While ownership of the format may be changing, members of the rules committee and others of the community will continue to be involved, and the vision for a social format will not change. We've had some preliminary conversations already about what we would like to accomplish and have some ideas that we would like rolling out together in the months to come. Working with the community to draft this format is critical to all of us. We've opened a new Discord on the official Magic Discord in the hashtag Commander News channel, and we'll also have a weekly MTG stream talking about this tomorrow, October 1st at 10 a.m. PT. Lord knows I'm gonna be watching that. That's gonna be, I hate the timing of it in terms of like getting out a video, but like, yeah, this is like 1 p.m. EST for me, so timing of it isn't great, but we'll get there. What's next? While this is very early, we do want to share one thing that things we've just started working on with the rules committee, a more objective approach to deck power level and additional guidance and shared language for players to find games that match the type of game they're trying to play. It isn't anywhere near finished yet, but as part of the building with this community, we're opening it up to feedback, thoughts, and your vision of how it would look. Think of it like an open beta. Okay, so let's see this. You know, Commander has been ruled by like the power 1 through 10 structure. People talk about, oh, I'm a power 5 deck, I'm a power 6 deck, and EDH, a CEDH deck is like a power 10 deck. Maybe a hybrid or an extrapolation of that. Here's the idea. There are 4 power brackets, and every commander deck can be placed into one of those brackets by examining cards and combinations in your deck and comparing them to lists we'll need to community to help create. And so this is kind of like a further extrapolation of power 10, right? So you can divide it into quarters. So maybe the first 25% is like bracket 1. That might be like precons, but to be fair, the design of precons are so much better. They might be bracket 2, which might be like power level 3 to 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8 might be like bracket 3, and bracket 4 might be like straight 9, 10, like near CEDH, if not CEDH. For example, you would imagine a bracket 1 has cards that can easily go in any deck, like Swords to Plowshares, Grave Titan, Cultivate, where bracket 4 would have cards like Vampiric Tutor, Armageddon, and Grim Monolith, cards that make games much more consistent, lopsided, or fast than the average game can engage with. In the system, your deck's gonna be defined by its highest bracket card or power. This makes it clear as to what cards go where and what kind of cards you can expect people to be playing. For example, if Ancient Tomb is a bracket 4 card, your deck would be considered a 4. But if it's a part of a Tomb themed deck, the conversation may be my deck is a 4 with the Ancient Tomb, but 2 without it. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, yeah, so you see how systems like this aren't perfect, right? It's like, yeah, I'm playing I'm playing like Lotus Petal, I'm playing Fast Mana, or I'm playing Mox, but this is like a deck with like jewels in it. I'm playing a deck full of jewels in it, you know, like I don't know, like something like that. Will the system guarantee perfectly matched games? No, and that might be fine at your table, but if it gets the conversation started by sharing an understanding, that's already great for the table. Perfectly fair. I'm all here for open communication and having that collaboration amongst the table, your community, your LGS, whatever it might be. We'd love to hear what you think, all think about this, and which power brackets you would place certain cards in. We'll also be evaluating the current ban card list, okay, alongside the Commander Rules Committee and the community. We will not ban additional cards as part of the evaluation. Statement, end statement, okay. So nothing else is getting added. While the discussion of the ban list starts this, immediate changes to the list are not our priority, but so it can still happen. So, you know, a lot of people have been talking about, okay, now that Wizards of the Coast takes this, okay, now they can unban Jewel Lotus and the Mana Crypt. Now they can unban it, because a lot of people were talking about how, yeah, Nadu and Dockside can get banned, but when you ban cards like this, like, I don't know, can you unban it now? Because they're not saying anything about unbanning. It's not a priority, but again, it can happen. For now, the safety and well-being of the Rules Committee is the priority. What has happened this past week is entirely unacceptable. By working together as a team, we should consider the responsibility of the format and everything that comes along with it. Please stay tuned for more to come. In the meantime, you're welcome to join our Discord and discuss further, and we'll see you a weekly MTG stream tomorrow. Whew, it's going to be a lot of changes, so I'm excited for that stream. I will say off the cuff, I think this bracket system is interesting. It really is just a dumbed down version of like the Power 10 scale. It might be, you know, making it more general might help it a bit more. But again, you have this situation. Yeah, my deck is a 4 with an Ancient Tomb, but it's a Tomb themed deck. So is everyone okay with that? Like, it might be better to analyze that. Like, you know, I don't know. Does this help LGSs where, oh, this section of the store is like bracket 4 decks, and you know, like, is it no longer called CEDH, but it's called bracket 4, B4? We call it the B4 format. CEDH is now officially called the B4 format, the bracket 4 format. Just saying, like, again, it's cool. I like to, it's beta. I like to see where it goes. I think there's changes, but that's okay. That's what a beta is for. I'm excited to see what they talk about in the weekly MTG. I imagine this is going to be a very, like, a lot of people are going to be watching this. I can imagine a lot of people are going to be watching this. So I'm really interested in where that goes. And I think in general, when it comes to bans, I think a lot of people, again, should be cautiously optimistic, because a lot of Commander players don't have experience with constructed Magic, right? And that's okay. You don't need to. This could be the only way you engage with Magic. I'm not saying you need to play constructed Magic, and I'm not saying constructed players need to play Commander either. I think the problem is that you don't have that view of what this means when it comes to changes from constructed environments. And before we go too far into it, I wanted to bring up like specifically the Rules Committee's tweet on it. So as a result of the threats last week against the RC members, it's become impossible for us to continue operating as an independent entity. And so this was kind of the big reason why they wanted to shift this forward. So again, highlighting the fact that this is not okay. If you genuinely feel like you need to harm someone, like again, like genuinely feel like you need to harm someone from the EDH RC over losing a couple $100, you have deep personal problems. You should probably go figure out your finances, because I don't know why you care so much about a couple $100, right? Like, you should probably not have spent a couple $100 if you care that much about, but don't spend money you don't have. Let's first and foremost, this is a luxury hobby, get it right, especially when it leads to threats. Go figure your crap out, go see some therapy, and go talk amongst yourselves, talk to your friends, and look through these opinions. If you're threatening people's lives over something like this, yo, you're actually fried in the head. You're actually fried in the head. We're sad about the end of this era and hopeful for the future. WOTC has given us strong assurances that they don't want to change the vision of the format, which is another big concern that I wanted to talk about. Committee members have been invited to contribute as individual advisors to the new management framework. The RC would like to express our gratitude to all the CAG members who have contributed their vision and perspective over the years. Finally, we want to thank all the players who have made this game so successful. We look forward to interacting as members of the community. Please be excellent to each other. And again, deserves like, please be excellent to each other. 100%. Again, in many ways, I cannot stress this enough. Stop threatening people over a couple $100. Get a life, figure out your finances. Magic isn't worth it. But I don't know. This is the best example of get a job. Like literally, like, go find something productive to do, get a hobby, get a job, go eat, go outside. Like, I don't know, something's getting you mad, and it doesn't need to be threatening other people in a context like this at all. Okay. Not at all. One of the things I wanted to bring up was, you know, rest in peace to one of the greatest contributors of Magic in general, Sheldon Menery, one of the founders of the format, talking about his Commander State of the Format in 2023, right? So this was in March. And so, you know, kind of some of the goals that they're talking about for the Commander format moving forward, especially as Sheldon was kind of, you know, battling, you know, having his battle ultimately ending, and Sheldon's view of the format. And in many ways, I would say, you know, his close friends, Jim, and a lot of the RC has done a very good job of proliferating that. And I stand by many of it. Again, I'm all for open communication lines and just kind of solving and self-solving a format in this way, finding solutions to certain things. Commander is a social format. It encourages positive communal experiences where people can bond over shared experiences of gaming, you know, big moments, political moments where, you know, something might be objectively correct to do, but in the best interest of other players, something different happens. Help players communicate their preferences and arrive at a set of shared experiences. Commander is a format of creative expression. So again, that whole idea of like, yeah, you know, I might be playing Ancient Tomb, but it's in a Tomb themed deck. So that creative expression. Promoting an environment where players are free from pressure to conform from any specific deck building method. And so this is where I start to like, when you start to get direct management from Wizards of the Coast, a body that has a vested interest in making sure the format does better and sells well, now that you put the ban list handling directly under them, I don't know, this is the entity that designs cards and makes cards directly to sell and for players to have big moments, big bombastic broken cards. And now you're putting the management of the ban list directly under them. It kind of seals the deal. Like this is, they have it all now. The format is completely under them. Maximize the available card pool. This also, again, doesn't really make sense. So maximizing the available card pool doesn't really stand with banning cards, right? Because you want players to be able to, you know, self-regulate, create their own play groups, create their own rules in such a way that maybe accepting or not accepting, like, you know, yeah, we can play with Jewel Lotus, but maybe in like our higher power games right now, I want to play a lower power game. Are you able to play, kind of build a deck or have a deck without that? Are you able to remove it for that game? You know, maximizing the card pool again doesn't really lend to bans or active management of a ban list where you add or remove cards. Removing cards obviously kind of make that. I'm definitely more on the side of unbanning cards. I've talked about this in a lot of my constructed videos, but yeah, incorporate a new first-party Magic content into the format as it is created. Active advertising. I once again remind you that we're in draft mode here. Significant build of stability might be, and so this is again, like this is not the banned and restricted. This is kind of the rules of the format moving forward. And so Commander is stable. Again, okay, because I'm going to bring into context like a lot of the recent bans that have happened in constructed formats. Stability is not a thing of constructed players, and it's not something that the design team is necessarily used to. And they've made some changes to kind of promote stability in terms of creating set windows for design. But there has been some really unstable moments in constructed, especially in recent memory. And so something like this really irks me because yes, you could see that Commander has seen like a couple years of stability and there hasn't been any big changes for a really long time beyond like Golos and Lutri and stuff like that. But this recent one from last week was a big one. I think it's because it hurt a lot of people's wallets. And I hope this is eye-opening for a lot of you talking about how, you know, we should be abolishing the reserve list. And once you do, some of the worst members of the community are going to come out of the woodworks talking about how they lost a lot of money. And how like there are a few players out there that, you know, they talk about the legacy constructed players, the vintage players that are like, yeah, I don't care necessarily about how valuable my collection is. I just want to play the game of Magic. And so those people are going to get outshadowed by the people that, oh, you know, like the Rudy Alpha Investments of the world. Well, I'm not necessarily talking to the point that Rudy or Alpha Investments has a necessarily malicious outlook on this, where if Wizards of the Coast was to abolish the reserve list, that he would be particularly mad. I think he would be upset to a certain degree, but I think he'd be happy that a lot more people have access to cards like this. But when something when people talk about like people losing money, people get very upset. People get very, very upset, and I don't blame them. The times are hard, economy's wild, ain't nobody can afford a house, right? Like all that type of stuff. And we're already playing a luxury hobby. So when it comes to losing money and having those bans, you know, it feels like in many ways, like, and talk to me about this. Like, I think a lot of people may experience this in the corporate world where, and heck, in any job, where sometimes you have to make a decision, right? Like you just have to make a decision. You're boss or supervisor or whoever has given you the enough information, but there still is a little bit of kind of gray area. And so you ultimately have to make a decision. And your decision goes a little bit too far. You made some of the correct decisions, as in you banned Dockside Extortionist and Nadu, but then you also banned Fast Mana in the Crypt and also the Jewel Lotus. And also those decisions had good reasoning behind them. You use some of the tools at your resources, discussed internally, work with your environment, and made a decision. It was an informed one. But it doesn't mean that it necessarily was a correct one based on your community and your stakeholders and your clientele. And so based on that, you then get reprimanded for that, and unfairly so in many ways, where this kind of feels like that reprimand, where a lot of the community has come back and threatened you, right? A lot of your user base has been like, this is a terrible decision. The button you made was too big. I hate the fact that you changed the app to color blue, like all this stuff. They hate that, and now oversight has kind of come down. Your department has now been kind of dissolved, and you still work at the company. You haven't been let go because ultimately you made a bunch of decisions that you can point back to and be like, yeah, you were involved too, you were involved too. You can't let go of me, right? And now the overarching body of your company owns this now. And so it kind of feels like you put in a lot of time and effort into something, and now the vision of that is being destroyed. One of the employees ultimately passed away and left, had a vision of the format in Sheldon, and now you made a decision that may have been slightly too far, but had a lot of good reasoning behind it. But a lot of parts of the vocal minority of the community had a lot of toxic and negative things to say about it. And because of that feedback, Wizards of the Coast has had to step in to take over for the safety of these people, but also to manage this as a final peg to be like, now Commander is the most popular format in Magic the Gathering. We now have full control of it. The ban list, the making of the cards, the designing of the cards, the selling of the cards, and the management of what you can and can't play is directly under Wizards. And so Wizards of the Coast has taken a social format. The role of the Commander Rules Committee is to keep the format social, creative, and stable, and preserve these three concepts to the greatest extent possible. That's their philosophy. The problem is that the format is still social, but now in ways where constructed as social, right? Because you now have a governing body that is going to be setting apart some rules as to how you can engage in this format. They're already creating some rules. We are now having an official Wizards of the Coast body give us a bracket system for cards. We will now be able to go to a Wizards article, Wizards of the Coast official article, which a lot more people will put breath behind. It's just the mental effect that Wizards of the Coast handle this and not an RC. The fact that the official printing body and the designing body now will have an article that separates all cards in Magic's history into different brackets will be a set of design rules that a lot of people will follow. And so this format isn't social self-managing. The creative aspect is still going to be there. The creative aspect didn't get destroyed, but the stability is also in question. And that's what I want to bring up in this next section here. So constructed bans. The Pioneer bans gutted combo. So I'm going to link this article down below. Feel free to read it. The big thing I want to bring up is Inverter Combo. Inverter Combo was banned after months and months and months of Pioneer going downhill, and a lot of things were happening at the same time. We had the pandemic and just a lot of people not going to local game stores. Pioneer just came out of the format. We did a lot of active management of the format, but then that kind of slowly took back in terms of a back seat. And Pioneer Inverter Combo, the Thassa's Oracle Inverter Combo, took over the Pioneer format, and according to the data that Wizards of the Coast had, they said that it did not have an overwhelming winning odds in compared to like other decks. Yes, it had a positive win rate, but it wasn't winning like 75% of the time. It was winning like somewhere in the mid 50s, I believe the number was. I'm forgetting the articles, there's some tweets and everything. I believe it was in the mid 50s. And so that's still a positive win rate, a long ways. And the format was left to die for months because no one wanted to play against Inverter of the Truth all the time. It was by and large the single best deck in the format. And with that in mind, they finally banned Inverter of Truth so much later. And I can't help but think that with management like this, with strict management like this, that now with this bracket system, CEDH or the B4 format, the bracket 4 format, yo, shout out hashtag B4 in comments. The B4 format might actually become more recognized with a ban list, with separate management. This is kind of what the CEDH players have been wanting for a very long time. CEDH may just get its own ban list and its own management in the design team. And with that comes this delayed management, the use of stats, the lack of community engagement to really understand this, and kind of an increase in numbers and hard-headed people looking at these numbers and how they lead to delayed decisions like this that push people away from the format. Commander was much better as a social format that was left up in the air. And I think with the management of Wizards of the Coast, a lot of people are underestimating the psychological impact that this is going to have of having the official body governing this format, and the rules committee and the design team having oversight over this. We're going to run into situations like Inverter Combo, where for months this combo was allowed to exist in Pioneer. Again, at a time, there's a lot more factors to this. I will acknowledge that at a time when Pioneer was trying to grow. Now, Sheldon mentioned in his article that I was going over that, EDH, especially in 2023, was in its mature level of development. It is definitely like mid to late stage as to where it is in terms of its evolution. But there's still a lot of growing that a lot of the player base has, especially as we have more products, hundreds of legendaries every year, Commander support, Modern Horizons 3 with Commander products in a modern specific design set. The format is getting even crazier. The other thing I wanted to bring up, especially with the recent ban and restriction announcement on August 26th, we see a firm stance on ban windows. Moving forward, we'll be aligning our ban and restriction announcements to the RC and the RCQ seasons, which allows us to make adjustments in play environments to ensure the best experience possible. And so to that end, the BNR announcement will be on December 16th. So sticking to hard times. And so with this, I imagine Wizards of the Coast will have to create ban windows for the EDH format. This is going to create a lot of movement and churn in the format as well. A lot of price speculation, selling out, selling in, because before this, the ban and restricted announcements were not set in stone. The ban and restricted announcement we got last week for Commander was out of nowhere. No one was ready for it. No one was prepped for it. A lot of members of I would say, if not any members of the advisory group were even told about it. That's why Josh Lee Kwai left. He was not advised as to the change in that format. And so now Wizards of the Coast will probably align some of their movement around maybe big set releases. Like, what do we do ahead of maybe the next Commander Horizons, the Commander Masters? What do we do around that? We'll probably create a ban window, and then people will get up in arms. They'll be like, oh, this card is ruining the format. This card is ruining that format. This card is ruining CEDH, but not EDH. This card is ruining EDH, not CEDH. And we'll have this big divide in the community, people talking about bans and not bans. Whereas before this, we had this whole idea of self-regulation. You had a problematic card, just don't play it. Just, you know what? I don't play it. It's too high power. It costs too much, this, that, or another. The general casual player base at the LGS had a different mind to it. But now, because it's an officially fully managed Wizards of the Coast format, I think that sentiment is going to change. I believe that the sentiment is going to change. And again, that's why I really want to highlight, I believe that is my personal belief. Based on how constructed formats are managed, I believe now that the ban and restricted announcement is managed under Wizards of the Coast, that management style will change to mirror that of constructed formats and have these windows where then people will have these discussions where maybe, yeah, we might move in a direction where I feel like is a good thing, where we might have more unbans. We might get Mana Crypt back. We might get Jewel Lotus back. Especially from a marketing perspective, Wizards of the Coast has an active monetary reason to bring Jewel Lotus back. Jewel Lotus, even as of a couple months ago, started having those promos, those multicolor promos. Jewel Lotus was on the cover of Commander Masters. A lot of people have brought these examples up. Like, Wizards of the Coast has financial incentive to bring back some of these cards. They have financial incentive to reprint these cards. They have financial incentive to look at the ban list and bring back certain cards back to playability. And does that mean we're going to get Primetime back in Commander? Does that mean we're going to get, whatever broken card? I mean, we got Worldfire back a couple years back. Does that mean we're going to get Golos back? Who knows? I just know there will be more churn. There will be more active involvement, and I would not be surprised if we saw a ban or unban every single year. Every single year. Because Wizards of the Coast has an active incentive to churn the format, to sell product, and to move things around and to promote design. Whereas they might promote the design of a certain graveyard mechanic, a hand size mechanic, a battlefield, kind of width mechanic where in terms of the amount of creatures that you have, a board flood mechanic. And so with that, they might unban a card that helps that. They might ban a card that stops that. I'm saying this is directly going to happen, but they have the incentive to do so now that the ban and restricted list and the announcements are directly now going to include Commander in it. And of course, there's going to be advisory conversations from members of the RC and from members of the Commander Advisory Group, or, we'll kind of see who's staying and who's going. But I think a lot of this is going to be, kind of affected by that. And these windows, these strict windows that Wizards of the Coast has with their banned restricted announcement on constructed formats, that's going to affect Commander as well. And with these windows, we're going to have expectations. We're going to think about changes. And I think, you know what? Honestly, a lot of positive things could come out as well. A lot of content creators, I think, like myself, can do their job in working with the community and telling them like, hey, honestly, maybe nothing needs to change. We can work as a community to keep the format social, to keep it creative, to keep it open and honest. And we can do that. And that's something that I want to promote. But I wanted to bring up all these concerns because I'm cautiously optimistic. Because of my experiences in constructed formats and how they actively change and how we're actively looking at right now, the One Ring in Modern being played in over 50% of decks. I mean, the One Ring is a very powerful card in EDH, but in a lot of ways, the budget aspect and the creativity aspect of EDH is pushed so much. And I think it's ingrained in players to be creative and look for alternative options because you can't afford that. A lot of times people make budget videos, Commander under $50 and all that stuff. These are the type of things that a lot of players like because EDH is an open and accessible format. It is a social format being in a multiplayer environment. And these are the type of things that we want to be promoting. And I do want to promote that. My feel is that once this change happens, we will start to get newer players, a newer era of players that will know EDH to be under the Wizards of the Coast Rules Committee. And they will be the start of the change towards a direction of Commander that I don't think may be in a good spot. And all of this, honestly, is the community's fault. The vocal minority, the toxic people that have led to a lot of the threatening and the harassing and just a lot of the negativity around the changes from last week. Again, a lot of them with good reason behind them in terms of the changes had good reason, not the negativity. Then those good changes led to negativity because a lot of people had their wallets hurt, their egos hurt, and they refused to change. They refused to get more creative and all that stuff. I think a lot of people just need to do a lot of internal looking. I will be as well as I look to some of these changes. I'm excited, but again, cautiously optimistic to see where the changes in the rules committee goes. Especially in terms of what's next. I'm really looking forward to, kind of what happens in this weekly MTG stream, and then ultimately taking a look at, where the RC goes from here. What happens to the RC? Who are the members that are staying? Who are they actively going to be talking to? And where the vision of this format really stays? Because at the end of the day, Sheldon Menery, one of the creators of EDH, had a vision for the format. And what I mentioned, again, rest in peace. He had a vision that I feel like this banned and restricted change, this management of the format, is a shift away from that vision, in my opinion. And if I see a future, if I can hope for a future where Wizards of the Coast keeps that vision, I'm happy for that. I'm excited for that. I want to push and I want to help keep that vision that Sheldon had for the format. I want nothing more than that. But my initial reaction to this is that this isn't a good shift in that direction. This isn't keeping to Sheldon's vision. And I'm scared as to where this goes now that Wizards of the Coast has full management of this format. And I'm not saying you need to panic sell your EDH decks. Continue to play EDH, continue to curate conversations, continue to curate a great environment amongst your LGS, amongst your locals, amongst your community when it comes to Commander, because the format itself hasn't necessarily changed. There aren't new rules in place yet. You can still direct the narrative that we have for EDH. We can still keep it the social and inclusive environment that it is so that Commander can continue to be, I'm just moving through tabs at this point, so that Commander can continue to have a great future as we look to where Wizards of the Coast wants to take it. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I kind of did a lot of talking, a lot of blabbing. I originally had, I'm wearing, you're going to see my orange shirt for, Truth and Reconciliation Day in tomorrow's video, or maybe in a future video, where I was recording a video for Modern and Constructed. And then this announcement came out. So I was like, well, scrap the editing on that, because now I got to make this video. So anyway, let me know what you think about the change in management of EDH. Do you think that, are you as wary as I am? Are you more excited than I am? And are you still looking to push the inclusive and creative and social aspect that the Commander RC had as their mission statement and their philosophy? Comment section down below, sound off. Let's see what happens to, the most popular format in Magic the Gathering.